Okay, so greetings, sovereigns, peace, sovereigns. Welcome to another wonderful, mind expanding, informative, and healthful plant based talks and episode from the podcast, which is the Sovereign Eats podcast. And so, when we do these plant-based talks, we always like to engage in interviews and explore the minds of amazing guests, people just doing it in their lives, right? So we're kicking off the month of July with another plant-based talk, but this month we're doing it different. We're featuring fathers, right? And we're doing this mini series to honor the journey of fatherhood. And on our plant-based talks, we get into it. So we're going to talk about the journey and path of our guests today, Nigel Byam, and the challenges that he has overcome. But we also want to talk about the achievements that he has manifested in order to get him to the walk that he's walking now in his journey. So today's guest is Nigel Byam. He's an athlete. He's an author of Tunnel Vision. And by the way, that piece is available in Kindle version or paperback on Amazon. And he's also a coach, a speaker, a father, of course. So yes, here at Sovereign Eats, we acknowledge family, right? Because we acknowledge nation building. So welcome, Nigel. Welcome to the Sovereign Eats podcast. So you're officially a sovereign now. So tell us about yourself. Just share with us anything that you want to share. Let's get into it.
Thank you for having me. Just to start it all off, it's amazing to be here. Definitely, I always love being a part of something positive, and positivity is my thing. So I really, really enjoy this. And like you said, I'm a former professional basketball player. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an author, content creator, a bunch of different things. But above all, I am a father, like you said, and that's like one of my greatest accomplishments ever. So that's amazing to me.
Right. Well, thank you for being here. And, I wanted to share that I have known Nigel for a long time, y'all. But, the true value of you know, his ability to speak to youth and engage with young people and mentorship was actually something that I witnessed myself. During my Brooklyn College years, I was actually studying for a master's degree in environmental and space science and teaching of environmental and earth science. And I wanted to do a project that helped to explore and unlock the keys to intrinsic motivation for boys, because at that time I was a special needs educator and I had predominantly boys in my classroom. Three-quarter of them, my students were boys, but they were bright boys, smart boys, but not necessarily intrinsically motivated. So I wanted to explore how men as mentors would actually influence their own internal drive for performance. And so I thought of Nigel Byam, and there were a few others. And can you tell it? Do you remember that? Do you
I
remember that?
do. I
Can,
do.
so I'm going to stop talking and you tell us that
I
experience.
mean, it was very interesting because I got a lot more questions than I expected. Because normally when I speak to a younger group of males and females, um, a lot of them are a lot more. I don't want to call it starstruck, but they kind of just listen to what I have to say and just kind of stare at me. So it was interesting to have them like communicate, ask questions about did I do this and did I do that. So it was really engaging, which was, I mean, it makes it a lot easier to even have a conversation with them when they're totally engaged in who you are as a person and how you got there. You know what I mean? It was very, very interesting. It was fun. I enjoyed it a whole lot.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, I remember most of the boys were starstruck. They just asked questions because they could not sit down in that classroom and not say anything. But yeah, they were talking about that experience for a very long time. And all of the experiences, of course. And this one was different though, because yours was a Zoom call with them. And at that time, that was like our first time doing anything Zoom. This is back
Right.
long before anybody even knew what Zoom really was. Now
It's
Zoom's
true.
all
True. It's true.
in every classroom now. Zoom is in every classroom now, but yeah, the experience of just having a conversation. Do you remember where you were at that time?
I was in. I was somewhere. I wasn't in. I wasn't in New York. I believe I probably was somewhere around the world. I don't remember exactly what.
Or
I
you
think in the
were
Middle East. I was somewhere in the Middle East for sure
right. You
around that time.
because I remember one of the boys saying, "But he's not even here. He's not even us from somewhere else. Where else in the globe?" And then we took a globe after the call and looked at
Yes.
the map to figure out like where you were and so on. So that was really great. And I what I find absolutely fascinating reconnecting with your journey was to identify that you are a coach and you in some way shape or form mentor others,
Yes.
right? So tell me about how you work with and mentor young men now.
So I pretty much do it worldwide. I work with tons of schools in New York, as well as North Carolina. Just traveling and kind of using sports as a point of contact. One of my bigger missions is in Grenada, which is Caribbean, for those that don't know. Due to the fact that here it tends to be a little more they need a little bit more motivation because opportunities are not as easy as it is to someone in the States. So in order to make it on an international market, they need that extra push because sometimes you might be working hard for 2 3 years playing the game of basketball and nothing happens for you
Right.
at all. Like you don't even hear a whisper about anything happening. And for anybody, that can be, your motivation level can definitely drop. So, a big mission for me is definitely doing a lot in Grenada. Community events, I do a ton of those, using sport as a point of contact once again to kind of just bring the community together and also have the community enhance the younger basketball players. Because I think that's huge, they get a lot of confidence from having their mothers, their fathers, their aunts, and their uncles coming to watch them play and cheering for them. So I put on these events that help them get that kind of encouragement, which is so needed in our communities for sure.
Oh, definitely. And young people want to show off their talent. They want to show
Yes.
that's it's all about look at me, right? And that's a good thing because they get to demonstrate what they have absorbed and learned. Like knowledge is important, but wisdom is showing. The do is in the doing. You have to do
Right.
to achieve wisdom, and then you get understanding by actually exhibiting and
Right.
demonstrating how you process that knowledge, right? Which is all the skills that you would teach. So what are some I wanted to ask about like what donations are like and how do you get financial funding and support for those programs?
To be honest with you, I've started doing this in 2010. This is when I finished college, and I had the opportunity to play professional basketball. And this is kind of biblically, some people kind of say, you offer back a 10%. So with
I think
just me being the person I am, I always said to myself, I would take my 10% and pour it back into community. That was my thing. It wasn't like giving it to a exact church or anything, but I would take my 10%, literally jot down what 10% was of what I was making and just funding all my stuff myself. And I've been doing that for years. To be honest with you, for me personally, it's extremely difficult for me to get anybody else's help because people tend to look at me and say, "Oh, he's a professional basketball player. He has it. He can do it on his own."
yeah.
Even big business places in our contact in Grenada, it's kind of difficult. People being able to actually give me any financial, um, support. But that I never let that, kind of deter me from what I was doing and making stuff happen. So I've been honestly funding it myself, and I have a clothing line, um, which is my name. My company is Brand NB, which is Brand Nigel Byam, and I have a clothing line, and the clothing line basically exhibits a lot of positive messages. So I might just have a T-shirt that says greatness, or positive energy, or um,
Royalty?
yeah, right,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And that's what I sell, and the 10% from that actually helps me fund the stuff I do around the world. So that's another aspect of something I do, and it's been working out. You know what I mean? Clearly, more is always better. So
Right.
for anybody who wants to be involved, like I always encourage people, listen, like it's so much more we all can do to enhance communities all over the world. And I'm just one vessel for sure. So that's how pretty much how I fund it pretty much by myself.
Right. But you're one vessel reaching many. And the idea is that reaching many is you're reaching back, which
Mhm.
is reminds me of the Sankofa bird, right?
Right.
Because you're looking back at your past. It's go back and fetch, but you're going back and fetch. You're looking back so that you can give back. You can see
Right.
where the gaps are so you can give back. And the truth is, when young people are supported and aided and are given that standard of what it means to support, mentor, motivate, and inspire, they turn around and they're able to do the same, right?
Right. Right.
It's really, yeah, it's a model.
Right. And I think that was huge because as you know, I've been coming to Grenada literally since I was born. I would spend the whole entire summer on the island. So I spend a lot of time, a lot of mental growth here in Grenada. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing stuff here. And I had a community of guys and females that pretty much raised me up every time I came here. And I remember, if you're doing something wrong, you would have this so and so and this person like trickle all the way down until you reach home, and then you get in trouble from that person. But it was just a molding thing, and this is why I'm so passionate here. When I played basketball in Grenada, I had tons of guys that were willing to help me, willing to show me different things, willing to rough me up sometimes when I needed it. You know what I mean? So this is exactly why I'm so passionate here, and I could say those guys set the model for me when I became successful and achieved certain things, to come back and actually donate my time and donate, any financial support I could possibly do to enhance communities back in Grenada for sure.
How now the skills that you built,
Mm-hmm.
mentoring, working with young men, and well, before I ask that question, what is the ratio like when it comes to young men and women that you work with? And I ask, and or boys and girls, and I ask because I mentioned young men, and you said young
Yep.
women too, girls. So can you tell me what is the ratio like?
It's I wouldn't say it's even. It's also definitely more men than female, but the game of basketball is getting so huge on the female sector as well, and that is like it's big. It's big all around the world. It's actually really surprising to see how much more females every single year are getting more and more active into the sport of basketball. So I could honestly say it's I'll say about 70% men, and the rest is pretty much female for the most part, because they still dabble in a lot of like volleyball, netball, and different things like that. But I do speak to all of them on a whole, like as much as possible, and trying to get people opportunities. That's one of my main things. Trying to get them seen by the rest of the world. Like Saturday, hopefully the weather allows us to. I have a all-star game, and that all-star game is going to be live streamed as well, giving people the vision of what we have here, what we have to offer. The internet makes the world small. And I feel like, we can live stream them and they can be seen on every continent around the world using my contacts and different people that I have. They'll be able to be seen. So that was my mindset of doing this All Star event. This is actually my second year doing it. So it's hopefully to be a great success.
What is the name of the event? What is the full name
It,
of the event? And tell us where it will be held and what time.
okay, it's going to be the name of the event is the Nigel Byam All Star Game. Nigel Byam All Star Game. It's going to be held on the Grenadian basketball court, and tip off is at 6 o'clock. It's going to be live streamed on KG9 Blue. If anybody goes on Facebook, you can see KG9 Blue. It'll be live streamed on that platform, and they can check it out on Facebook as well as YouTube. It'll be on YouTube as well. But KG9 Blue. Blue is BLU. BLU. Yeah, KG9 BLU. And nice streaming platform, and it'll also be on my platforms after the fact. But if people want to see the game actually live, it'll definitely be available for sure.
Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
So And it seems like you answered the question in general terms, because when I was thinking, I mean, I was born and raised in Grenada. For those who don't, y'all always hear me say that on the lives. I always say I was born and reared in Grenada, But I guess the question was really, I was really starting to think about what that ratio looked like in terms of how many young women are interested in basketball, based on what I know of in Grenada, like growing
Right.
up. I'll
Right.
share a quick mini story. I remember sharing that I was interested in playing basketball, and it was a difficult thing to get permission to actually get to the basketball court on a Saturday to play any ball at
Yeah.
all. It
Yeah.
was it was tough because I guess um it was almost like being sheltered, but at the same time it was more of like that's not in your realm.
Right.
That's not your space, right? You have a space, go dance or something, but you're
Right.
not going to play ball. Not that I can't play ball now, but that
It's
was
only
something I wanted
recently though. I'll definitely say only recently it's kind of accepted. It was a taboo before. You know what I mean?
right.
For females to play the game. I'm not sure why exactly, but it really was. It was really like this wasn't a thing for females to do before. But now it's really much more accepted than it was in the past for sure.
Well, I mean, if that's happening in Grenada, I know why, because tradition, cultural practices,
Mhm.
and even gender roles are really prominent in
Mhm.
the Caribbean, right? And we haven't lost, I don't think we've lost sight of that. Of course, some of it changes or is changing, but I
Right.
think the mixing down of gender roles per se has happened a lot here in North America, and it has taken a while for it to actually hit the Caribbean. But I could see how that kind of keeps that thing in place where it's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have a space, this is what you do, and
Right.
those things over there,
True.
but
True.
so now here's the question I really want to ask. Tell us, what is fatherhood like? How has all of your mentoring and all of your work, your athletic work, building yourselves up, how has that helped you to become a better father? How has fatherhood affected your mentoring as well? I'm sure it's like a dynamic, back and forth in terms of exchange of energy and you having to balance things. So can you tell us about that?
Well, fatherhood, just to start it off, it can be difficult at times, but due to my background, being able to communicate, which is huge. A lot of people don't communicate with their kids. Um, and I think it's really important to be able to communicate with them and ask them like, you know, just something simple as, do you want some sea moss pancakes? Because that's something I always make for my son, right? Some vegan sea moss pancakes. And, he might say no. And I have a tendency to ask him why.
Mm,
So every single thing that I tell him to do, or he would come back and say why. Just being able to exercise his brain. Because sometimes with younger kids, you want to be able to communicate with them to really know what they're thinking, because they don't really express the way they should. Even when I mentor kids, it went hand in hand. A lot of kids in the inner cities, even though I don't like using that term, but the inner cities, they tend to not want to communicate with somebody of high authority. It's almost like a threat.
yeah.
So I was the middle person all the time that basically almost spoke their language, you should say. Spoke their language to make them understand, like, hey, I'm on your side. I'm not against you. And it's the
Right.
same thing with my son, Caden. It's more of, I want him to understand that I'm with him. I'm not just this authority figure standing at 6'7" who just wants to bully you or whatever the case may be. Like, I want you to have a freedom of speech. I want you to be able to use your brain. I want you to be able to have a point of view. I don't want you to just do everything I tell you to do just because I tell you to do it. And I definitely say I learned that from mentoring kids throughout the years, that not everything that a parent tells you to do you really want to do. We especially us in the Caribbean, sometimes we have a tendency to tell our kids, go be a doctor, lawyer, something of that nature to make us proud. But then
Right.
again, it's like, what does that individual really want to do? They probably don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And that's where I think mentoring and being able to communicate with the younger group of people really taught me about my son and how to do things. Just because I play basketball doesn't mean he wants to play basketball. You know what I mean? And it's okay. It's fine. Like, and I feel like, that's what mentoring has taught me and helped me out with fatherhood. And it's also very difficult to kind of deal with yourself, if that makes sense. Because we have very similar personalities. Very, very
Oh,
similar personalities, right?
oh, because I was going to say, can you elaborate on that? Oh,
Yes. And the
I
personalities is like almost identical. Every time anybody sees him and the way he reacts to certain things, it's like, yeah, you and your dad, like really, really strong personality. It's very similar. Like I was pretty laid back. I didn't do too much. I didn't talk too much or anything of that nature. And he's pretty much the same exact way. Like he doesn't do too much. He's just kind of cool and calm. Even just at 4 or 5 years old, he's just chilling. And I was pretty much calm kid. I didn't really get myself into much. I didn't need a bunch of friends. My sister was a whole different spectrum compared to me. Like we're like light and day. Like she likes a lot of people around, and I'm a little different. I have a tendency to kind of just um, listen to my thoughts sometimes, sit down and relax, and just be by myself. I'm cool with being by myself, and he's very much similar. Like you'd walk in a room and see him, and he's just hanging out, and it's like, kid, and all right, like yeah, I'm just relaxing. Like a
okay.
4-year-old telling you this is like it's like hilarious to me sometimes, but I know for a fact that I was very similar to that. So it can be very difficult dealing with myself. But I mean, just the mentoring has definitely taught me so much about knowing how to communicate. I think that was one of the biggest things for me. Communication was huge.
Right. That's a beautiful key point that you bring up, communication being huge. Because growing up in the Caribbean, right? I think growing up in Grenada, I should say specifically, I don't you hit the nail on the head when you kind of say, yeah, the adults around you are like, yeah, do this
Yeah.
and this uh, and do this, and I'm not fussing about it. I
Mhm.
am saying that is a reality. One of the things you pointed out was that you ask why, and the reason he's asking you why is because you set the standard for that and conversation. Because when you ask him to expound by asking why, he understands and is learning that that is how you actually drive dialogue and get to know more about what a person's thinking. So,
Right.
you mentioned, yeah, they don't communicate the way they should. The truth is, communication is a skill that has to be taught. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to teach it in a classroom, but it has to be something that's taught. And you don't, it's kind of like language acquisition,
Yeah.
learning how to speak for children, right? They don't learn how to speak by just listening and observing is important, but they have to be able to try it. It's that
Right.
knowledge, wisdom, understanding that I was talking about. Like that wisdom comes by them taking what they heard and trying it out,
Correct.
right? Doing it. And that questioning he's asking is him trying out what you taught him.
Right. Right.
No?
Right.
So that's that. What are some in some ways, because you observe that he is a reflection of you. He is a mini you in a sense in mannerisms and behaviors. What are some things that you are catching about him? Maybe there are gaps, strengths, or areas that you want to reinforce. What are some things that you are seeing in him that you know are present in yourself, but you can catch and support right now, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So a quick story, like the other couple days ago, there's a little boy next door and he wanted to play with him. Um, and he's calling him. It's like Caden, 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 and Caden just doesn't respond.
Oh,
He just doesn't respond. So I'm like, Caden, why do you don't respond? He said, Daddy, I don't feel like playing right now. So I said, this is when you actually have a conversation and communicate that, right? I was the type of person that if someone calls me or something of that nature and I just didn't want to be bothered, I just won't answer the phone.
oh
You know
my
what I
goodness.
mean? Like, and or I just didn't want to talk. I just don't talk. And I was like, okay, I see this, and I'm like, oh man, this is something that I might have done, and that's not okay kind of situation. And I think I definitely learned from him, that is not okay. I'm telling him that's not okay, and I have to exercise that same exact thing and say, hey, that's not okay for me to do neither. So that's something I definitely say I've learned over the time. Um, Being able to communicate with an individual when you don't want to be bothered, or you're like, not right now, or just understanding that the world doesn't revolve around you sometimes, and other people's feelings and other people's emotions are involved as well. So that's definitely something key. I definitely learned for sure.
That's beautiful. In the community that I am a part of, at the core of like our ideals and so on, in terms of the culture, it's that an actual family is mother, father, child, and the child is what I really want to like speak about. The child is the ambassador for the culture of that family. So an ambassador is a representative. Like, they go out into the world, and they're pretty much like, this is the blueprint of what the knowledge and wisdom, because in so there's this thing called supreme mathematics, whereas it's supreme mathematics 120. So the father is knowledge, the father represents knowledge, the mother represents wisdom, and the child represents understanding, right? And so that understanding is fullness of the wisdom and the knowledge that comes together, right? And that's true, because it is the man and the woman's DNA coming together to make that child. So now when you instill that in him, now he's able to go off and be a fully evolved version of who you were, because there are parts of you that weren't evolved then, but they can be evolved in him. So it's just hearing the journey and the walk, because I think the walk of fatherhood is not necessarily spotlighted a lot. So like you sharing all those little details about like how it helps you to improve on even self, but on him, it's really, really important. Can you, if you have some more time, can you tell us, one thing that you really love about fatherhood, and then maybe you can shift into talk a little bit about tunnel vision, if you like.
um I think one of the biggest things with fatherhood, I think people underestimate this. It's like, you out all day, and when you come home, you have this little person running to you saying, Daddy, and like hugs you. Like, everything else throughout the day didn't even matter. Up to that point, when that happens, it's kind of like one of the most special things I think ever. And just experiencing his every move and the way he looks. You know what I mean? Like, the other day, he picked up a basketball, bouncing a basketball. I was like, why is your face so serious? Right? And he's like, that's what you do. Because he looks at it. I have a poster of me holding a basketball. It was a photo shoot, of course, but my face was very intense. So he said, that's what you do. I see you do that all the time in the pictures. Like, that's what you do. And I'm like, wow, like how observant he really is. Like, how much he paying attention. I didn't think he was paying attention to that stuff. Like, I didn't even pay no mind. And he's like, that's what you do. And it's like, oh wow, like, so just seeing his everyday movement and the way he pays attention to the things I would do, it kind of keeps me on a very straight and narrow focus. You know what I mean? Because now I have to watch what I do, watch what I say, watch all these things to make sure I'm setting a good enough example for him. And definitely, even with the book, like my book, Tunnel Vision, he was basically the motivation of it all, because I sat there and I thought about how much I would love to have this story to share with him of how hard work, dedication, and just persistence. You know what I mean? I've done a lot of things on my own time, meaning my own strength. I didn't wait for a coach to get me any scholarships. I didn't wait for an agent to get me no contracts. Like, I sat there and thought about what they do, and can I do this myself? Can I market myself? Can I advertise myself? Once again, the internet makes the world extremely small. So if I wanted to contact a coach that's in Bahrain in the Middle East right now, I can. Because I can literally Google coaches in Bahrain, basketball coaches in Bahrain, and get his email. And that's exactly what I did. And that's exactly what the book is about. just the journey of how I took it from not playing high school basketball, which people is an unheard story, not playing high school basketball and making it to the professional level and making it to the international level, playing all around the world. I literally played on every single continent. I traveled to places that people probably, never even heard of. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it was just, the book was just the journey, and definitely my son was the person that kind of motivated that whole documenting that journey and showing people. And I wanted to really show him that we can't sit down and really wait for anybody to make something happen for us. You know what I mean? You don't sit down and wait for somebody to tell you that you're great. If you really look in the mirror and you tell yourself that you're great, no one else can tell you anything different. You know what I mean? And something huge. I had a podcast about it, and someone asked me about success. What is success to me? And I
Right.
literally looked at them and I said, I honestly feel like success is a person's mind capacity. You know what I mean? We all could sit here and say success is a millions of dollars. But if you honestly don't believe success is $1 million, then I can't tell you that's success. You know what I mean? If success is just you being happy and living your everyday life in positivity and smiling, living good with people, if that's what you call success, that's exactly what success is. And I really want to, teach my son and, whoever else I come in contact with to be able to use your own mind. Don't look at anybody else's vision, and use your own tunnel vision, like my book, your own tunnel vision, and make up your own success and create your own story for your life. Don't really pattern your life after somebody else's. You can be motivated, you can be encouraged by somebody else's story, but understand that your story is your story and not nobody else's.
No, that's a powerful message. That's such a powerful message in the age of social media influencer,
Mhm.
social media lifestyle, so social media millionaires,
Yeah.
social media models, social media real activists. I don't know,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, it's huge
But
because that's big. Because one more thing about social media, what people don't understand, 90% of social media is not even real. It's really not real. Majority of people that you see big time celebrities on social media is highlights. Like a basketball game. If I took 50 shots, but I only made five, and I made a highlight tape of those 5 shots, that's all you see. You think I'm the greatest basketball player ever because he made every single shot in that highlight. But if you watch the whole game and watch the whole story unfold, you would realize I took a lot of shots to make those 5 shots. So now I don't look as good. So
right.
people only show the highlights of their life. That's what they're doing on social media. It's literally the highlights of your life. And individuals feel like we look at somebody's life on social media and say, wow, I wish I had a life like that person, or wish you had this, wish you had that. And sometimes you're doing better than that person. But they just showing the highs and lows, and no lows, all the highs, and that's something huge. Like I share that with a lot of young people. Do not look at social media and try to pattern life after what someone else is doing on social media.
And there's a lot of comparison happening. And
Mm-hmm. Huge.
comparison, you're comparing yourself to a fiction, a fiction of your imagination, almost like it isn't real. It's an illusion, is what I'm
Right.
looking.
Right.
Trying word is illusion. And I'm not saying that there aren't people who aren't authentic on there, but the point you made about the five impressive shots that people see or the five highlights that they see, the problem is it's not just the five highlights for the rest of your life. It's
Exactly.
five highlights consistently over the course of time. And so
Exactly.
you get to thinking that, oh, this is a pattern. So this is who they really are. But the truth is, they're creating that pattern of what you see, and they're giving you the boundaries of, like how to create or build that image that you see them as. So
So
they're defining what that image is, but in reality, that may not be the case. So that's, like, I'm glad that you're able to speak to and highlight those important parts, because social media is such a powerful tool.
Huge.
But yeah, it's a very powerful tool. I mean, you just spoke about connecting to coaches via email. I'm like, yeah, there's so many people you can go right now and pull up several different people and just hit contact. And your email it connects to your email, it gives you a phone number, and people are very open and free with that information right now
Very, very
because, like you say, social media does make the world much smaller. It is the world is small, but it makes it so much more
even
small,
smaller. True.
much smaller. I really appreciate this conversation, this dialogue. I actually wanted to ask you another thing because this is a plant-based talks, and everything I do, the Sovereign Eats, is all about transition coaching and supporting and working with those who want to transition to vegan, raw vegan, or even just a plant-based lifestyle,
Hmm.
right? But health, whether it's for, just to feel good, well-being, or maybe you're going through something severe right now, right? And you really need a turnaround.
Right.
So because of that, like I've seen a couple of your videos where you've been juicing. I think this morning you had something. What tea is in this cup? What tea
Yeah.
was in that cup today? What was that tea? Sarah
That was
C?
that, some nice lemongrass with some Santa Maria leaves. It was amazing, actually.
What is Santa Maria?
Um, I think there's another name. I think the other name maybe Pity Bum. Maybe they call it.
Ah, okay.
Another. It's another name called Pity Bum. They said they use it for like mucus. I just like the way it tastes. So
I know Pity Bum, and when you said Pity Bum, it brought me back to Black Sage tea.
right.
So, and I'm not sure if they taste the same, but I remember Black Sage just because I remember my grand aunt. That's why.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, so that's what was in that cup. Okay, all
Yeah.
right, all right, all right. That's good. So, have you embraced a plant-based lifestyle, and have you transitioned your youth to that plant-based as well? Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
That was pretty, simple. Dating back from you, I should say, was one of the first times you and Ross and other friends that we have around kind of introduced me to that. Till this day, I make the cashew cheese all the time. By the way, amazing. Not as good
Okay,
as you, but I try. I
all
do
right.
try. I do try. But yeah, definitely a plant-based diet and how we actually eat. With my son, like I mentioned, putting sea moss in some vegan pancakes, and it's literally a substitute for everything right now. Like it's a lot easier than it was 25 years ago. You know what I mean? It's so much easier to have a natural plant-based diet. So yeah, we definitely are plant-based. Yeah.
What are your some because when you say there's a substitute thing, now you want me to take a whole nother hour of your day to rant and rave and talk about and argue about how substitutes can actually hurt people. But I wanted to know what is your perspective on meat alternatives and substitutes, because I'm sure when you were visiting Grenada, you were introduced to soy chunks, and you probably don't use those at all right
No.
now because now you know the reality of soya chunks. So
Yeah.
that being said, and I just finished reading an article, well, piece of an article, I have to go back to it, that was speaking about plant-based foods that actually it utilizes the structure of the meat itself
Right.
in order to recreate their so, and I don't know where they draw the line. I don't know if they're
Yeah.
using extracts or what, but I wanted to know what is your perspective on the many alternatives that are available now.
It's kind of a lot of them are kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like it was one time, I tried. What's the name of it? Impossible and Beyond. That's what it was. The Beyond Meat thing, right? So I bought a Beyond sausage, and it was pink, right? It was pink, and I said to myself, okay. I put it in the pot and I started frying it, and it started turning brown. I said, "Oh no, I'm not eating this. There's no way I'm eating this. There's no way it should turn like real beef. Like it was crazy.
Right.
It was like I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like And for those who don't know, I do have associates in culinary arts. Like that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to be a chef.
Right.
So just
Eh?
seeing that, seeing that, and I was like, I said, wait, that's not right. That doesn't. So a lot of the substitutes that they have now, it's kind of cool, the technology of certain stuff, but some of them is just too risky for me. It's like even some of the ingredients on them are not that amazingly great. I don't know if you're familiar. They have something called Just Egg. It's
I,
in a
I,
bottle, and it literally, I kid you not, this is like scary how much the texture, everything is just like egg, like just like it. And it's like, I understand we have technology nowadays, but at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is way too good to be true, and it's kind of scary to me personally. So I don't really mess with them.
right. Because if you're mimicking something and you're recreating it, yes, you may use plant-based plants as the basis, but what's causing this thing to coagulate the way it does so it mimics egg? What's causing the beef I mean, I add beets to my little, creations, my raw creations to make them red for
Right.
people who need that. Because some people that transition, they're like, I want to see it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't turn like if you heat it, it's not turning brown.
Exactly.
So those things make me wonder, yes, you're right. What are the additives being introduced into your body if you're consuming these, right?
Right.
You
Right.
know, and I've also followed some of the vegan festivals and so on, and I do look at the food because I like to see, I like to see what it is that people are interested in. If I'm gonna coach and consult and support people who have to transition to a vegan lifestyle, I have to see what it is that they want to eat as
Right.
well because they want to still fry their things, right? I got to
Exactly.
understand that they still want something that feels like egg, that tastes like they bite
Yes.
into the burger. So I get it, but it is disappointing sometimes because the variety of plants that we have, I don't see it there. I see browns fried. I see a lot of soul food imitations
Yes. Yes.
as opposed to the real, looking at real food and saying, you know what? I eat this broccolini. It doesn't taste as wonderful as maybe deep fried cauliflower, but I can tell you what's in it. I can tell you that, like I can taste the natural flavors. But I guess I'm moving from at a different speed, and I always have to understand everybody else is like, nah, you can still
Yeah. Well, well, I think the easiest thing is the fact that someone been eating a certain way for their entire life, right? So to get the mac and cheese and the fried mushrooms and the collard greens with not the pork in it, but another tasting kind of thing. Like they look to imitate all these things, you know what I mean? And when you eat something that's vegan or raw food, vegan, it should have a specific taste. I shouldn't bite a fried mushroom and say, "Wow, this really reminds me of Popeyes." You
right.
understand what I'm saying? Like
I do.
it just like in mentally, it just shouldn't be that way. If I'm eating broccoli, it should taste like broccoli. It shouldn't taste like a burger or whatever the case may be. It just shouldn't mimic something that's not plant based for the most part. And I think that's the hardest aspect people have in the transition is having that mental aspect of this should taste like what it is and not imitate what you want it to be. You know
Right.
what I
What
mean? So
we've
you're
been
not.
programmed to eat because we could keep going about this because a lot of what we've been programmed by color,
Hmm.
like industrial psychology is real. Psychology is real. Food psychology is real. And
Yep.
there are people looking at the chemistry and the dynamics of the psyche and how to influence it through smell, taste, texture, color. There's no wonder some places use red and yellow because those colors stimulate gastric
Yeah.
juices, stimulate the desire to want to eat.
Hmm.
So somebody's playing with us and
Of course.
programming us from since we're young. And one thing I've never forgotten is someone said to me one time, from 0 to 7, show me the man and show me the child from 0 to 7 and I'll show you the man. That's not the exact quote, but what they're telling you is from the ages of 0 to 7 makes the man that you
Right.
see 10, 20 years after. So 0 to 7 those are critical years. You
Huge. Huge. I think that's like one of the biggest things. It's like the kind of stuff my son would sit down and eat. A normal kid possibly wouldn't even dare sitting down and eating. Um, we make some sea moss applesauce kind of substance. It's like sea moss and applesauce and a little bit of spice and stuff like that. His
right.
mom makes it, and he loves it. He would sit down there and eat it. I give it to another kid, and they're like, "Oh no, this has something in it that's not supposed to be there," so they just can't get with it. And he would sit down there and he will eat it up. He the kind of kid get up in the morning. Can I get a smoothie? Like at 3 or 4, like at this time, he really got up and want to see more smoothies because it's something that we do all the time. You know, we eat this way, so this is how he eats. So it's definitely an easier transition when you have that initial aspect, like never drank milk, cheese, like these things never consumed, so he doesn't have no urge for it. I tell people my son never been sick, never had a cold.
Wow.
Reason being, and especially at his younger age, never had a cold. And this is because a lot of the things that create the mucus he doesn't consume. He was fully breastfed, never even had a bottle, ever, never had a bottle. So it's he doesn't even know what a bottle is actually. But
Right.
he never had.
You shouldn't. Don't even feel. You don't need to put a disclaimer in there. Don't feel
Yeah,
bad about it. You shouldn't. You
yeah,
shouldn't.
he definitely never had that. And so it's just those kind of things. And then you tell certain people this stuff, they look at you like you're the extremist, like you're the
Right.
crazy one, due to the fact like you didn't give him a bottle. What do you mean you never gave him a bottle? Like never.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And they look at you like you're crazy. Like, wait, this is something natural that's free and the body produces it. And you're telling me, you're looking at me like I'm crazy. Like I'm the crazy one. And, but, just having our own lifestyle and doing our own thing is the most important thing. And I'll just encourage anybody else out there that, just do your own thing, man. You can't look at society because society is kind of blinded. They just follow this one wave. And once you try to keep up with them, you're gonna be just as lost as them for sure.
Definitely. I really appreciate this conversation, this dialogue. We can close out now because so much. We've had a full dialogue. I think we've touched everything in terms of who you are on your journey and your walk as a father, but as a coach, a mentor, and as Nigel Byam, you're your brand,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you.
And your brand is brand, right? What is brand an acronym?
No, brand. It's not. It's literally because with the logo, a lot of people only see brand, right?
Yeah.
But what people don't see is it says brand, and in little letters in between, it says NB.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's literally just brand Nigel Byam. That's literally what it stands for. Because it's just everything that I do. I do so much. So it was like, okay, if I had to name my clothing line, if I had to name my content creating, if I had to name my YouTube channel, like it's too much for me to name. So I just said, you know what? Everything pertaining to Nigel Byam is one brand. So we just gonna call it brand NB. And
Brand.
that's what it came about. Yep.
All right. So tell us where we can find you, where we can support, where we can donate one more time just before
Yeah.
we close off. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you. All right. So it was, everything is pretty much nigelbyam.com. You can find everything about me. If you literally type my name in anywhere, you can find something. If you type in Nigel Byam, NigelByam, Nigel Byam, anywhere, any social media platform, Facebooks, Instagram, Twitter, anything of that nature, I would definitely pop up. So pretty simple to find me, nigelbyam.com. I have my online store there where you can see my merchandise. I'm getting big into socks right now, so I got a lot of positive messages socks because people associate socks with, personality and stuff. So I'm getting into that. I have a lot of different stuff going on, and anybody